Our scripture comes from Matthew chapter 2, beginning with verse 13. Now after they had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. And this was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through a prophet. "Out of Egypt I have called my son." When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he was infuriated. And he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years of old or under, according to the time that he had learned from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. When Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. And when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea, a place where the father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. He will be called a Nazarene.
Following God into a new year. Well, how about merely following God? We may well say we want to follow God, but then we say, well, where is God leading? How does God lead? How am I going to know where I'm supposed to go, how I'm supposed to live, or what I'm supposed to do? Well, how about listening to our dreams? You may say, well, wait a minute. I mean, sometimes I don't even remember my dreams, or the dreams are so sketchy, or dreams don't tell me anything. I don't know how to interpret dreams. And we may say, well, maybe God doesn't approach people in that way anymore through dreams, or, oh, man, that's just a bunch of hooey. Living according to dreams? We know those people that are just dreamers. They're just kind of out in La La Land. No reference to the movie I saw over Christmas, which I thought was a good movie and nobody else did. So, but dreams, which is quite strange, because basically we spend 1/3 of our lives asleep. Now, I know some of us say, I don't think I spend quite that much time asleep. I may be trying to sleep, but basically 1/3 of our lives is sleep, and yet we really don't know much about sleep. We don't really understand it fully. And then dreams? Our text today is full of dreams. The verse before the reading started today started out with, "And the wise men, having been warned in a dream, went back to their homes by a different route, avoiding Herod." Speaking of avoiding, I was tempted to avoid Herod today. I thought, well, what is this text? It's the liturgical reading for the day. It's a part of the regular liturgy that we read from if we choose to follow the lectionary. I thought, well, let's skip this part about Herod. I mean, we don't want to deal with that, do we? All that violent stuff, all the atrocities committed by Herod. Whether this event actually happened or not, from what we know of Herod, he was fully capable and likely to commit such atrocities. So I thought, well, let's just leave that out and just talk about dreams and following our dreams. And perhaps we ought not to condense dreams down to those kinds of images that flash through our minds when we're asleep. Scientists tell us that we all dream, whether we remember them or not. Some people make more or less of dreams than other people do. I've talked with people over the years, and some people say, well, we can learn a lot from our dreams, and other people say, well, it's just kind of our brains fixing everything, and we don't know. But we all have dreams. Whether we dream at night or daydream, or even say, I have this image of what I'd like my life or my world to be like, to become. We all have dreams. We've talked about that before. What are our dreams? What's our dream as a church? What do we dream? Some of you turned in a few weeks ago, we wrote on slips of paper and said, what are your hopes and dreams for the future of this congregation? And a lot of you have this dream of a sanctuary. And some of you have a dream of not having to take these chairs up and down all the time. But what are your dreams? What are our dreams? Obviously, according to the writer of Matthew, following our dreams are an important way of following God. My daughter and I like to watch documentaries. They're entertaining, they're fun, they make us think, and we've watched several over the years. And one of the ones we've watched was about dreaming. It's a documentary called Hoop Dreams. It's pretty old. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Well worth watching. Hoop Dreams. H-O-O-P Dreams. Hoop Dreams. Obviously, it's about basketball. But it's about two boys in Chicago who seem to be extremely promising basketball players. They both are heavily recruited by a local Catholic high school, St. Joseph's, that has been a powerhouse basketball team in Chicago and the state of Illinois for years. They go around finding these young men that look like they're extremely talented and bring them into school. And the documentary follows these two boys, looks into their family lives, and takes them into this school where they try to become the basketball stars, the future NBA prospects that they, their family, their friends, their coaches, their supporters, and their fans want them to be. Hoop dreams. A dream on each of these boys' parts to become a famous NBA basketball star. I was working real hard today to say, well, I'm just going to do something very light and uplifting and talk about, well, let's follow our dreams and God's always at work in our lives, which I happen to think is true. But I got a text from my daughter yesterday, and it was a text about hoop dreams. Well, I didn't think anything about it, and I noted, thanks for sending this to me, and I thought, well, it's probably some sort of a follow-up documentary to that original. I think there was a follow-up, and I thought, well, she's just sending me that. She discovered it. I noticed it was from the New York Times, and I finally opened it up this morning and really looked at it. The title of it is A Hoop Dreams Sequel, written by gun violence. And it's by Joe Norcia, December 23rd, 2016. I don't know how she came across this, other than she must have been looking at something about hoop dreams. So I began to look at it this morning and read what he wrote. in this follow-up to Hoop Dreams. I wasn't going to introduce this, but I was going to skip Herod. I was going to skip the reality of the violence, the hurt and pain in our world. But even as we celebrate God with us and seek to follow God in the new year, maybe we need to listen carefully about what dreams to follow. Jordan Osea writes this article about Hoop Dreams and the boys that went to St. Joseph High School. One of them became a star guard for St. Joseph, and just as he was approaching stardom in college, he blew out his knee, and that was it for his career. The other young man lasted a year at St. Joseph. He just couldn't deal with riding for almost an hour on the train from his home in the ghetto of Chicago, clear out to St. Joseph and back again at night, putting up with basketball practice. He didn't fit into the school, and he wasn't quite as successful as he wanted to be, so he went to Marshall High School in Chicago. And with him as one of their star players, they took third place in the state tournament. Nobody thought they'd even make it to the state tournament. And he went on to college and did okay, but nothing much came of his career. He finally ended up back in Chicago, living in the midst of domestic violence and drug use. Joe Norcia writes that when the documentary Hoop Dreams was produced, there was very little in it about gun violence, even though in the year that Hoop Dreams was produced, the murder rate in Chicago was the highest it's ever been, even higher than now, almost 1,000. It's clear down to 700s last year. He said that gun violence wasn't a part of this movie. And the producer of the movie said, no, it wasn't. It wasn't an important part of their lives in those days. Apparently, in 1994, when this was happening, gun violence was kept basically within the gangs. Even though the murder rate was so high, it was basically contained. And even in the movie, they portray the gang members as protecting the star athletes. In fact, there's a scene in the movie where Mr. Agee is in a sports shop buying all sorts of sports apparel. He's got this big wad of cash, and he's just peeling off the money and buying all this sporting goods. And so, where'd you get this money? Well, drug dealers gave it to me. They were trying to support him. They wanted him to be a successful star. They were invested in him. But something changed. And now it seems that the violence in Chicago, in our world, is more indiscriminate. It doesn't really matter. Athletes are no longer protected. Nobody seems to care. Gun violence is used for the slightest of infractions. The writer says that even honking a horn at somebody may get you shot. One of the bit players in the movie Hoop Dreams was young man Sean Harrington. He was on the Marshall basketball team. He also was a good basketball player, eventually ended up at a college and became a Division II All-American. But after he graduated from college, he didn't make it in the NBA, and so he went back to Chicago. He said, I wanted to go back because I wanted to take care of my little girl. He said, I did not want to be an absent father like mine was. So he went back, became an assistant coach at Marshall High School, and the year he was assistant coach, Marshall won the state basketball tournament. And then one day, Sean Harrington got up in the morning to drive his daughter to school, like he did every day. But on this day, their car was in the shop, and so he rented a car, a white sedan. As they approached an intersection, not too far from the school. There had been a shooting not just a few minutes before involving a white sedan. As they drove in the intersection, the people who had been shooting at the white sedan thought it was the same one coming back again. And they began shooting. John Harrington threw himself over his daughter to protect her. And he was shot twice, running 2 vertebrae. Now he's in a wheelchair. He says, but I still believe God has a plan for my life, which is amazing. His daughter was saved. He's wheelchair bound. He no longer is able to coach at Marshall High School. There are no ADA facilities to allow him to get in and out of the building, not even a freight elevator to move him from floor to floor. So he spends his time at home, living on $300 a month for Social Security and another $165 a month for food stamps. But he still has an upbeat attitude. He has a machine in his house that makes him stand upright and puts him on his feet, and he says, I'm going to walk again. And apparently, basketball coach in Florida heard about his situation, and he and Shaq O'Neal raised $40,000 to buy him a van so that they can get around in the wheelchair like Carl and Jesse are able to. He still tries to coach some kids, but it's informal. But he says, I believe God is still at work. I'm hoping you and I still dream that God is at work in our lives. And when I compare my life to these young men in Chicago, to the violence there, and think about, wow, have I ever had it good? And yet, I sometimes struggle with saying, I'm not sure I'm really ready to follow you into the new year, God, because I'm not quite sure exactly what dreams I have to be dreaming, and even some of these crazy notions I have, are they really from you, God? And yet I hear the text that the wise men, having been warned in a dream, went home by a different route. And an angel came to Joseph in a dream and said, take the child and go to Egypt. And even though violence was perpetrated, God was moving, God was speaking, God was inviting, God was causing dreams to happen. Joseph got up and took the mother and child, and they went to Egypt. And then in a dream, God said, go back to Israel. And again, Joseph listened to the dream. And he went back to Israel and thought he'd go back to his hometown, but somehow God continued to move and speak. And Joseph eventually ended up settling in Nazareth, which is how we call Jesus of Nazareth. Following God into a new year means opening our hearts, our minds, our spirits, our very selves to God's leading. I can't know how God's going to speak to you. I can't know how God's going to move in your life, or my life, or even our life as a church. It may be in a mysterious way. It may be in circumstances Or it may simply be that you get this wild notion and say, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. I think this is what we're supposed to be about. I can't know. But I do have confidence. I do have faith and hope that God is speaking and moving in your life and our lives, and that God is fermenting dreams among us, within us, and around us. And even in an unsettled world, as we begin 2017, even in the midst of a nightclub shooting that killed 39 people in Turkey, even in the midst of continued violence, hurt, pain, and lack of caring for other people, God is still the God of dreams and inviting us to follow God's way of peace, love, justice, and joy. This is one of the times I wish I could sing. I can't, so I'll read. To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far. To fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, then my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one man scorned and covered with scars still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star. Following God into a new year may well mean paying attention to our God-given, inspired dreams. So, my friends, I wish for you a life filled with dreams. Amen.